Welcome to Farm Food Facts. I'm your host, Phil Lempert. If there's one thing that we've learned over the past 15 months is we all have to work together. And that's why together today, we're going to talk about the Common Connections Project. This is a unique collaboration between pork, corn, and soy. First up is Danielle Solis, who works as a communications specialist at the Maschhoffs. Her tenure of 9 years with the company has included experience in the marketing, flow, and transport aspect of swine movements. Her degree in integrated marketing communications, combined with her developed knowledge of the pork industry over the years, has given her the desire to consistently communicate the importance of sustainable practices. Her passion for the pork industry is fueled by the company culture focused on being good stewards for the environment, for consumers, and for the community. Her family values align with that of the fifth generation family-owned company she is proud to have established her career with. Solis, along with her husband and 2 kids, are established members of their local community. Rochelle Krusemark is with us, and she grows commodity soybeans, high oleic soybeans, corn, cover crops, and raises hogs and a cow-calf beef herd with her husband, sons, and daughter-in-law in Trimont, Minnesota. Her family's operational goals are to transition the farm to future generations of farmers, obviously all in her family, and to serve as stewards of the land and the environment while producing crops and livestock with the efficiencies to remain sustainable. She's also a 4-H leader, a church youth mentor, and is an alumna of the Minnesota Agriculture Rural Leadership Program. Randy Spronk is a hog and grain farmer in the Edgerton, Minnesota area, and is also a USFRA communications specialist. So let's get started. For those people who might not be aware, tell us about the previous relationship that existed between corn, pork, and soy, and how this partnership came to be. Rochelle, why don't you start with that?
I would say the majority of farmers that raise corn also raise soybeans just as a crop rotation. And then, of course, the corn and soybeans are fed to animals, mostly poultry and pork. So it only made sense for us to collaborate and develop partnerships within the ag industry because we all have the same interest in mind.
So, Danielle, when did this start? Was this as a result of the pandemic, or did it start before the pandemic?
You know, Phil, it really started before the pandemic. This is something that our CEO, Bradley Walter, and our Maschhoff family have felt really very passionate about for several years. We really feel that corn and soy are the cornerstone of any good diet for a growing pig, and really recognize the importance, the desire that consumers have to understand the supply chain process that really kind of explains that and where the pork chop on their plate came from. And then it was created in a sustainable manner. So really boiled down to us for really that sustainability for our consumers, and something that we really wanted to kind of have that connection be made for them.
So, Randy, I'm going to put you on the spot. How hard was it for everybody to work together? Because typically, pre-pandemic, certainly, you had people who were, pardon the pun, but in their own silos. They cared about their farm, they cared about their crops, they cared about, their pigs, but they didn't talk a lot to each other. So when you all got in a room, virtually or in person, how difficult was it? And what were some of the challenges?
Not difficult at all. Soon as I'm completed with this right here, I'm actually hopping on a plane to go to Denver, Colorado. I'm actually serve on the U.S. Meat Export Federation Executive Committee. We're actually doing our 5-year plan here, and also on there is going to be representatives from corn and soybean. Obviously, those checkoffs support the marketing of pork worldwide, and so this is just a continuation. I think in my mind, this is really strengthening a relationship that I think corn and soybean farmers know that when their end users, in other words, the pork farmer benefits from that increased demand, they benefit also, as was stated by Danielle. Obviously, when we're looking for energy in our diets, it comes from corn. When we're looking for protein, we're going to soybean. So a very symbiotic relationship, and to me, it's just the fruition of sustainability, what it really is.
One of the stories that I've heard again during the pandemic is how a lot of supermarket retailers have really reached out to farmers, to ranchers, to build stronger relationships, partly because what they wanted is they wanted a stronger supply chain, but partly because they wanted to know who they're buying from. In the case of all three of you, have you had any retailers reach out to you?
Yes, just recently last month, the pork checkoff and soybeans and Colburn's did a partnership together and to promote soy food or soy fed pork. And it was a great opportunity for soybean and swine farmers, which I'm both, and USB to partner to highlight the health and sustainable benefits of the meat from family farms. And especially here in Minnesota, being a large pork producer. So the campaign actually featured me in the hog barn and all the efforts that we do on the farm, for sustainability, like the pork quality assurance and the transportation quality assurance on the pork side, that we are very proud that we take a lot of extra effort to make sure that we follow procedures and protocol. And just like on the crop production side, our goal is to be very good stewards of the land while producing protein and energy for the animals.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Coburn's. I happen to know Chris Coburn well, and they are an exceptional retailer who really is out there and trying to not only do great for their customers and themselves, but also for the community. So that's a perfect example of how we all need to be symbiotic. What you're describing is really a great example of how stakeholder groups are stepping out of the box, working together towards a common vision. What are some of the lessons that you've learned from working with these other industries? Randy, why don't you get us started with that?
I think back to your last question where we're talking about have we had retailers reach out to us. I've had the opportunity internationally, not only in Colombia, but also the Dominican Republic, to Japan, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, where you're actually, yes, we're promoting U.S. pork, but because of the support from the grains, from the corn and from the soybean organizations, we have the ability to be able to do that. And so I think it's just a great how should I say, tells us how when we all work together, we can all benefit. And so I think we do have a great story to tell. We've got a story we can tell about how those crops are produced, how those pigs are raised. And I think we can give confidence to that, not only the retailer, but to that consumer, that we're doing the right thing and we are sustainable.
And Danielle, when we talk about, especially working across our borders, across the U.S. borders to other nations, what are some of the metrics that we've got in place, and what are some of the metrics that they're asking for all three? And how do you communicate that, especially in certain cases? I'm sure there's some language barriers.
The culture of the Maschhoffs really revolves around a concept to really measure, to your point about the metrics, really every part of the production process. And it isn't difficult for us to get our hands on the metrics. It's something we pride ourselves in having benchmark. The efficiencies of sustainability and profitability really are key aspects to our business. And it's something that we're not willing to sacrifice sustainability for profitability. It's all about a continuous improvement culture to us. It really links to our core values that we strive to make a part of our everyday practices. The Maschhoff family is very involved in the business, and from an export standpoint, and keeping current with where that stands, and making sure that we're providing that framework and being transparent across the board from a metric standpoint.
So, the next question I'm going to ask, you implied that it's improved your operations, that you're making more money, hopefully, as a result of that. How do you now take what you've done and bring it to other farmers in other commodities, in other livestock, and really for the future? Danielle, why don't you start with that, and then Rochelle, love to hear your answer to that as well.
We're really our own best competition for that continuous improvement culture. The family has instilled a culture focusing on being the best. Using sustainable practices as a benchmark really allows us to only improve year over year. We really strive to exceed our own expectations and our past performance. And throughout the years, the Maschhoff family has growth and development while extending its family values through its employees. So it's production partners, customers, and within the many communities we operate. So there's really something to be said about providing security, creating opportunities for the next generation, and our production partners strive to be with the best, to produce with the best, and really having something that showcases our sustainable, our good stewards to the environment. It's contagious. It's one of those aspects that producers want to partner with companies that practice that and are really proud to shout it from the rooftops.
So Rochelle, when you talk to other farmers and they say, tell us your secret. Tell us your secret. What do you want every farmer to know about what you're doing and how it's benefited your family and your operation?
I don't know that it's really a secret, Phil, but all I can do is tell our farm story. But I can also tell you that as a member of the United Soybean Board and the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, that I know that I'm confident that farmers really care, and we want to make sure that whether consumers are here domestically or our products are exported, we know that everything we do on our individual farms is a reflection on all of us as U.S. farmers. And so we take great pride in what we do every day on our farms to make sure that food is safe and that we're not doing anything on our family farms that might compromise the integrity of the food that we produce.
So Randy, you mentioned a bunch of countries that you all are dealing with. Are there any questions that they have that surprise you or that have made you change any of your procedures?
I think the best part of it is when they can get a dirt under his fingernails farmer, from the Midwest and hear what reality is. How we can describe what we do has been mentioned by your fellow guests here. And how authentic, seeing a true farmer that actually is exporting that product. And I really think the relationship between corn and soybean, and the proteins is going to get closer as we are transparent, as we want to show, our carbon neutrality. I need to understand the corn and soybean meal that I use, what the tillage practices are being used, what the fertility practices are going to be used. And so I think it's really just the transparency, the honesty, and that continuous improvement, I think, is what they really brings it home to what we're doing each and every day back on the farm.
When you're trying to align with sustainability metrics across all these industries, we've got farmers, we've got ranchers, we've got producers, we've got retailers, we've got everything across the supply chain. How do we include them to make sure that they're not only able to understand what we're talking about, but actively participate, and then, frankly, to adapt new innovations as we need? Danielle, what's your thoughts?
This partnership report really allowed us to tell our story. And throughout that, we took the liberty to really showcase just two different production partner farms, just examples of how our sustainable practices, our carbon footprint, so to speak, has been implemented. And as I mentioned, we naturally see a gravitation of partners that want to see themselves improve and want to partner with those that practice sustainability. So it goes back to the overall theme of putting our core values into action, demonstrating how our commitment, our partners' commitment to our core values goes beyond words on paper. We're committed to providing the best care possible for the animals, our environment, through an unwavering commitment to animal health, nutrition, welfare, and environmental stewardship. And it's really rallying our producers, our partners, and they have that same heartwarming care that they provide to those animals.
So I'm not sure who's the best equipped to answer this question, so I'll leave it to the three of you to decide. But when we look at research, especially in soybean quality, delivering a better feed product for poultry, for swine, for aquaculture, what's going on there? And if you look into your crystal ball, what is this research going to do to help feed the world?
Well, I might be the one to answer that since I'm on soybean checkoff boards. So every farmer's checkoff investment is important, and we have conducted a lot of research, and I'd like to give a shout out to the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research, because they partnered together to help fund some research about the composition of soybeans and improving protein. So we listen, a lot to the animal nutrition work group and to the livestock producers to say, okay, what kind of characteristics would you like in the soybean? And then we fund projects to develop those hybrids. And we also fund some research every year. It's an ongoing project that we fund every year that farmers can send in samples of their soybeans, and it comes back and tells you the protein and the essential amino acid content of the soybeans that you're producing. So we know what hybrids are the hybrids that we should be growing because that's what the end user wants. And I think it's very important to remember that although we're very, passionate about what we produce, that we, going back to the sustainability point, is that we're very cognizant about the nutrient cycle. So, we test those liquid nutrients from the hog barn pits, and we test the compost pile from our cow herd, and we apply the nutrients mostly variable rate on the land where we're going to produce that corn the next year. And so farmers are really we use a lot of science to make our decisions and to only use the nutrients that crop needs for that year, instead of using excessive amounts that might leach into the water supply. So
last question for all three of you. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important, how important is science in agriculture? Randy?
10.
Danielle?
10.
10 plus.
10 plus. Love it. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today on Farm Food Facts. You're all doing a great job. We appreciate this kind of collaboration, as well as every farmer, every rancher working together to make our climate better, our food better, and our world a better place. So thank you both. Thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
For more on all things food and agriculture, please visit us at usfarmersandranchers.org. Also, be sure to look out for us on Facebook at US Farmers and Ranchers and on Twitter at USFRA. Until next time.